Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joel Jacob.
What's up, Heat Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joel Jacob, and you can follow me on Twitter at JoelKJacob_. Without further delay, let's meet today's correspondents. First, we got Anthony.
6 more to go, y'all.
We got George.
10 down, 6 to go. We're on a roll, baby.
And last but not least, Orchard.
Another dub, Heat Nation.
All right, so to start it off, let's talk about this Game 3 win for Miami as the Heat went into Boston and reclaimed home court advantage. Winning by 6, Miami was able to handle business despite an injury that would keep Jimmy Butler sidelined for the whole second half and a group of refs that were clearly paid to help the Celtics win. Leading the way for Miami, you got Bam Adebayo with 31 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. PJ Tucker with 17 points, 3 triples, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals. Max Strus with 16 points, 4 triples, and 4 rebounds. And the returning Kyle Lowry with 11 points, 6 assists, and 4 steals. After seeing how bad Game 2 went, how did you guys feel watching the Heat win Game 3? Start us off, Anthony.
How? I mean, how did the Heat win that game last night? I can't tell you how many times since that game concluded that I really looked at myself and said, did that really happen? You know, I want to read this perfect tweet from the official 5 Reasons Sports account that they posted last night. They just said, the Miami Heat just won a game against the Boston Celtics without Jimmy Butler for the second half, with Tyler Hero struggling while facing the 3 officials in a road crowd energized by the injury dramatics of 2 Celtic starters. All of that against us, and yet they were still managed to come out with a win. It was insane. I think I can speak for all of us. You guys can let me know when you speak. But when the Celtics went on that run to start the fourth quarter and they cut it all the way down to 1 after that Jaylen Brown 3, I thought the game was over. I'll tell you the truth, when halftime started and we saw Depot in the lineup instead of Jimmy, I kind of thought the game was over anyways. I knew you would need Jimmy Butler in Boston to come out with a win. But, they were able to maintain through the third quarter. I was happy with that. And then Jaylen Brown went off, and I thought the game was over. The Heat could not score. They were settling for terrible shots, contested jumpers, turning the ball over, running the clock down to a second left on the shot clock. And then after Boston cut it all the way down to 1, they need one more stop to get their first lead of the game. We got my boy Strus Statty with the monster 3 to put the Heat up by 4. And then they never really looked back, even though that final 2 minutes took forever just because Jaylen Brown still didn't want to stop missing. And, of course, that officiating was terrible. But it really was an all-time win by the Heat, given the circumstances. That was the first step. They had to win last night. Now we just got to hope Jimmy's okay. We got to hope the knee's not bothering too much and hoping they can get another win in Boston on Monday.
I agree. And how about you, George?
I always really enjoy these games between the Celtics and the Heat because it's always going to be competitive. You've got 2 teams at the top of their game. You really do. You've got the Celtics who are on fire since the All-Star break come in and just, played so dominantly in the first 2 rounds. Then you got the Heat who just pick it up when they need to. And the reliability is maybe not being there so many times, but we just pull out these results. And all I see are people crying that the Celtics have only lost 2 quarters in the entire of this series. And, they're crying the fact that they haven't won, the 2-1 down. We took 1 at home, but how do you not beat a team that relies on a 30-point average Jimmy Butler? How do you not beat them when he exits the game at halftime? How do you not beat them? I'll tell you how. You get players who come in and fill roles. You have Victor Oladipo coming in and just hounding Tatum and Brown on defense. I know Brown had some more luck than the Tatum, but Oladipo came in and just really, really helped us slow the game down to a pace where it was a lot more manageable. Kyle Lowry as well. If this game, if Jimmy exited this game and Lowry still wasn't part of us, we in no doubt in my mind, lose that game. The time that he wastes, the defense he plays, the way he's able to get open looks for Bam. In talking about Bam, Jesus Christ, he was so slept on these playoffs, and he slept on his own game because he was playing terribly, and he's come out and done this and had a 31-point game when we needed it the most. He had 4 steals as well, by the way. So, just an amazing performance all game round. I can't stand the Celtics, so to see them lose and the fans leave the arena early is just undeniably just satisfying. And the fact that the refs, the entire game, were holding it against us is just a joke. So, more power to the Heat, and, we're nearly there.
Right. And, I thought, people are still trying to tell me it's just the Heat fans that leave the games early. So very shocking that Boston fans want to do that too. And let's see, Orchard, what's on your mind though?
Man, I still don't know what to think of this game. Like, literally, I was like happy, confused, thrilled, like on the floor. I'm like, this game was like literally every component was in it. We had a great start to the game. We took a 21-point lead after the first quarter. Bam was doing extremely well. I love to see him in the first quarter, 12 points, I believe. And then the second quarter, it kind of reminded me of the Warriors versus Mavericks in game 2, where the Mavericks had a really big lead, but then the Warriors were able to close out very well. And so were the Celtics. But the difference was, and I'm going to keep my cool here because I was really pissed about it yesterday, was that the free throw disparity was 21-3. That is just, it's, I don't know what to think is worse. The fact that the Heat got 3 free throws, or the fact that the Celtics got 21 free throws. That is just crazy to me. In the third quarter, obviously, I had no clue Jimmy was even hurt because I missed some part of the game. So I don't know if I missed something, but I did see that Pritchard yanked on his knee at some point. I don't know if that's what happened, but it was obviously a huge surprise to see that he didn't play in the second half. And obviously Oladipo did an amazing job filling in that role. Maybe not the offense that we get from Jimmy in these playoffs, but 100% his defense. His defense was absolutely amazing. And I think when Jaylen Brown, obviously he had a 40-point game, but when Oladipo was on him, I think he was doing a very good job of locking him up. And obviously getting some very critical steals. And I think the steals was the biggest highlight for the Heat. They had 19 steals, which is a franchise playoff record. And that's forcing 19 turnovers on Boston. And I think they had 23 overall. And that's really what won us the game. We took advantage of the turnovers and scored off of them. In the fourth quarter, man, that one was stressful. That was obviously, again, the free throws, man. I was reading, and I think at the start off the fourth quarter, Boston went on an 8-0 run. And in that 8-0 run, they only made 1 field goal. So that should just tell you right there that a lot of their offense was coming from free throws. And we were pretty lucky that they were missing them. I think they shot 73% overall from there. But yeah, overall, I mean, the final couple minutes, obviously, man, that was a stressful time. I literally fell to my knees, and when Brown hit that 3 to cut it to 1, I was just like, I thought it was over. But, like Anthony was saying, Strus hit that big time 3, and that really got our offense going again, because Bam made that long 2, Lowry with the clutch steal, and gives it over to Strus to hit the dagger. So yeah, overall this game, it felt like it was a 5-on-8 with the referees helping the Celtics throughout the entire game, but Miami still, fought throughout the entire game. And what matters is that we have the series lead now, and we still won on the road.
Right. And that's the big thing, getting home court back. And as you said, Orchard, the refs were just a big problem for the Heat. So the fact that we were able to hop in that second half and play some great basketball without Jimmy, and with the refs being on Celtics side, it's just a great thing to see, because it just shows you how great this Heat team is, how resilient they are and how ready they are for this type of moment. Because it's not easy going and facing a crowd like the Celtics crowd, because the Celtics crowd, is probably one of the most hostile environments you could ever, take part in, that arena, TD Garden. Like we've seen it before. We've seen all the Heat Celtics games in the past, going back to the LeBron era and all of that. There was so much stuff going on, but the Heat just found a way to pull through, even with Jimmy, missing that whole second half, and even with Tatum and Marcus Smart coming back from their injuries like 5 seconds after going into the locker room. The Heat was just ready for the moment, and I just love to see it. And it was funny because a lot of people were coming out saying, "Oh, the Heat, they don't want the smoke with the Celtics when they're at full strength." Well, guess what? We were basically not at full strength either yesterday, because at first I was thinking about how Kyle Lowry's back, so we got the full squad healthy and we're out here blowing them out. And then, Jimmy gets injured to come the second half. And, you see everything going on there. Obviously, with us not having our best player, you're going to see the other team make a comeback, and that's what we saw. And the Heat still took care of business. And that's because of not only what we saw from Bam, someone who we will talk about later on in this episode, but also the help from some other guys who will probably have a chance to talk about come the Spotlight Heat Player of the Week segment. So I don't want to go too much into detail. But overall, just what a great win. And honestly, that might probably go down as one of my favorite wins of this postseason run for the Heat once it's all said and done. Anyways, so we talked so much about that let's move on and talk about the improvements the Heat made, as this was clearly a different Miami Heat team compared to what we saw in the game before. With all that being said, what do you guys consider as the main things that the Heat fixed as they got ready for war in Game 3? You're up first, George.
I think the glowing disparity between Game 2 and Game 3 was the lack of defense played in Game 2. And we just picked that up massively. We got out to the shooters. We played vicious and terrifying on ball D that they just couldn't handle. And I don't see how we could have won this game if we didn't band together and really hang our hats on the things that we are best at, which is defense. With Kyle Lowry back as well, you saw a lot better. The ball move a lot better. But the thing that scares me the most is when Jimmy's not on the floor, how terrified we look on offense. We look like a deer in headlights because when you don't have a go-to scorer and Tyler Hero's shooting 4 for 15, which is just appalling, even by his standards. It's scary to give the ball to Max Strus and say, you know what, here you go. We need to give the ball to you to hit those big shots. And Bam as well. Bam finally found whatever confidence he was lacking to really start taking shots. And 22 shots from your big man is perfect. It really is. So having Bam perform, defense was better, playmaking was better, and we had the chip on our shoulder. We had we got blown out in a game at home, and that should never ever be the case. But it was, so we had to answer, and we did it quickly. So I don't care what excuses the Celtics fans make now. This was a really hard fought win, and to come out of a game where we just got blown out, to go into their building and do the same to them was just brilliant.
Right. I enjoyed the dead silence and the booing that we heard, because I don't know, like if y'all saw that game too, like you got some Celtics fans, they were sort of feeling themselves in the arena and stuff. So for the Heat to just take care of business the way how they did in that first half, although it ended up being a close game at the end, like it was just fun to watch, and to take that 2-1 lead. That's all you have to worry about. While it would have been good to see the Heat blow them out completely, I'll take the win regardless. So overall, it's a win-win. And let's see, Orchard, you?
I think the improvement was the wake up mentality. I think Game 2 was just a wake up call for us because, at that point we had won 3 straight playoff games, a game 5 and 6 against Philly and then Game 1 against Celtics. And, naturally, sometimes you just kind of let your guard down. And I feel like that's what happened in Game 2. Obviously, we could not. The Celtics are unstoppable. They were shooting 50% from 3. And I can't remember, but they made like at least 12 threes in the first half in Game 2. And obviously, they're going to fight twice as hard as they did in Game 1 because you don't want to go down 0-2 in the series. And you always want to steal a game on the road. And that's exactly what we did. Is we stole 1 game on the road, and hopefully we can steal the next one. But, it's always important to get that 1 game out of the way. And the other thing was probably, I think our turnovers. We had 14 turnovers in Game 2, In this game, we only had 8. That was the one thing I was very impressed about in game 3 was our turnovers. It was really surprising to see that Boston had 23 opposed to our 8. I always feel like Miami is going to be the team that turns over the ball more. So to see them take care of the ball, there were some really stupid turnovers in my opinion, but they were still able to limit it to 8. So that's really impressive. And then attacking the paint, it's always important because I feel like our 3-point shooting has been very inconsistent in these playoffs. And the next thing to do is just attack the paint, and that's what they did. And then the last thing is Bam Adebayo. I mean, Bam, he's probably doubled up in every single statistic in game 3 than he did in game 1 and 2 combined. He took 22 shots, which is the most he's done in the playoffs, and he shot very efficiently. And that's really the key. You know, when you're missing Jimmy, you got to have the next guy's got to step up, and that's Bam. And that he did exactly what he needed to do. He scored. He made tough shots. He attacked. He didn't get to the line as many times, but I'm going to blame the officials for that one. I think he should have gone to the line more than once. But overall, he was much more aggressive, and he showed us what he can really be, and hopefully continues to do this.
Exactly. You know, I was just so happy to see Bam have that type of game because, you know, we'll talk about this specific thing, you know, later on. But, you know, we always talk about, you know, Bam having to be aggressive, Bam having to be this, Bam having to be that. So for him to have arguably, this isn't even close, his best playoff game of this run so far, and probably maybe his best playoff game, you know, in his career already. It's just impressive because we didn't know what to expect the second that Jimmy went out. So he stepped up and he did his thing, and that's all you could have asked for from him. And let's see, Anthony, you?
Horsford brought up the idea of a wake-up call, and I know a lot of Heat Twitter has talked about that after game 2. Personally, that's not something I ever really bought into, just because these guys are all professionals. You know, they've all been through this before. Miami's had several bad losses this playoffs. They had a bad loss in game 3 in Philadelphia, and then they came out and lost game 4 also. So then just because they went on to win game 5, I don't necessarily think that was a wake-up call. I more put that to the fact that it's just the NBA playoffs, and the playoffs are hard. The playoffs are difficult. They're not supposed to be easy. It's not always supposed to be super competitive. It's meant to be more of a roller coaster, full of ups and downs. That's why, and I've never done this before, even after the win in game 1, when we did the preview about game 2, I kind of said I didn't necessarily expect the Heat to win, just because I know Boston's a really great team, and game 1 was a little too easy, quite frankly. So I expected a lot of back and forth. And same way Twitter was freaking out after game 2, I said, you know what? I kind of feel confident going into game 3. That being said, I don't feel so great going into game 4. But anyways, that's just what the playoffs is. It's supposed to be difficult. If we're talking about the biggest improvement after the loss, I mean, I'd just say that it's that Boston didn't shoot 20 or 40 from 3. You know, that's what the playoffs do. Great teams will step up. You know, great role players will step up like Boston's did in Miami. And that's just kind of how this playoffs are going to go. I see it going back and forth. I have Heat in 7, or Heat in 6, but Heat in 7 wouldn't surprise me either. I think these guys try. I think every guy tries. I just think it's two good teams going against each other. And because of that, you're going to have, you know, a lot of this back and forth, you know, ups and downs throughout a postseason. But they definitely had a lot of great things. Kyle Lowry being back was huge. He finally looked healthy. And then, of course, Bam Adebayo, which we're going to get into the next topic.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? One major difference from last game and what we saw last night was the fact that we didn't see Boston make 9 threes in that first quarter, because after that, that was when the game was starting to feel out of reach, you know, when you look back at that game too. So the fact that the Heat were able to step in and just sort of, you know, just simply not have Boston make the amount of threes that they were making in that last game, you know, it was huge for Miami. That and the elite defense too, something that we've talked about so much in many pods in the past. And it's so hard not to even consider making that topic for this specific episode because, man, like, it's 19, was it 19 steals? I don't know. I think it was 17 steals. I'm not sure. But everyone was getting their licks in, you know? Like, I think you had Oladipo had a few steals. I know Bam had 4 steals. Like, all of these guys were coming in, and you know what? Although I don't really like Kendrick Perkins, and I know he's rats off a ship, He has that whole the goons from Dade County thing, and that was exactly what the Heat were. When you look back at this game three, they were the goons from Dade County because they came in, they were not afraid to roughen up the Celtics. They were not afraid to play physical, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get the ball from them and to get that bucket that was needed to move this game further and get that 2-1 lead against them. So overall, I'm just so happy to see it. And, I don't want to talk too much about Bam because that's specifically what this next topic is for. So let's get right into it. So with all that being said, Bam Adebayo just had an amazing game as he put this Heat team on his back after Jimmy got injured. And this is all great considering the fact that, as I said earlier, like there was so much commotion regarding Bam and Tyler stepping up after what happened last game. I mean, even Eric Reed got in there. He was saying that Jimmy needs help and stuff. And it's safe to say that Bam specifically took that to heart. And I think Heat fans were beyond pleased to see how aggressive Bam was because I know that's the thing for a lot of Heat fans I've seen on social media, talking about Bam being aggressive and stuff. And for all those people that's pushed for Bam to be that way, it must have been a dream come true for you because that's what we saw in this past game. And we saw that as he dominated on both ends of the court, which is something you love to see from your max guy. So all praise aside, like what's everyone's reactions to seeing Bam have this impressive game three performance? Give us your thoughts, Orchard.
I love to see it. Obviously, it's been a topic by a lot of analysts in the last couple of weeks about Bam stepping it up, and especially obviously like you're talking about just after game two, a lot of analysts are saying the next man that needs to step up is Bam Adebayo, and he responded. I mean, he was obviously the best player of this game, and when Jimmy missed the second half, and he had to be the person to step up. And listen, he could in next game he could take 7 shots because that's a real possibility. But I think the important thing is that he does what we need to do to win. And in this game particular, he needed to take more shots, be more aggressive in order for us to win, and that's what he did. And the next game, it could be Gabe Vincent who steps up. It could be Kyle Lowry. It could be anyone. So I'm really impressed with Bam, and I hope he continues to do this. But the more important thing right now is that he's doing what we need to win. He's going to do it on the defensive end, and it's going to be important for him to step it up on the offensive end when we need it.
And let's see, Anthony, you?
Listen, I'm tired of Bam Adebayo's lack of aggressiveness, okay? And the reason that I'm going to come out this way is because it seems that Bam Adebayo only shows his aggressiveness when all of Twitter and coaching staff and every player and everyone he ever interacts with in his life yells at him. He should not have to have people tell him to be aggressive. He should not have to have people tell him that nobody can guard him out there. He's the strongest, fastest, biggest guy out there on the court 9 times out of 10. There's no reason he can't do this every game. And it's frustrating because, like Orchard says, he's probably only going to take 7 shots next game. And then we're probably all going to yell at him. And then he's probably going to do it again the game after that. There's no reason we can't get this Bam Adebayo every single game. It would completely elevate this team to an unbeatable level. Now, the most important thing at the end of the day is to do what it takes to win. And so far, they've obviously been very successful. They've only lost, 4 games this entire postseason. So I don't want to get on Bam Adebayo. But when the things get tough, like it will next game, he needs to continue to be aggressive. That's not enough shot attempts for him. And I personally just don't think it's who he is. That's why I don't even want to get mad at Bam for that. I don't think he's a scorer type player. But when he comes out there in the offseason and said he wants to be a shooter, when Pat Riley says that I think Bam's going to be a flat out scorer, that's Bam saying these things. That's Bam showing that he's capable. So the fact that he doesn't do it is frustrating. But at the end of the day, if that's not who he is, if he's more of a Draymond Green type player, a facilitator / defender, then I'll take that. Draymond's a Hall of Famer. But it just sucks because we see that Bam is capable of this on a night in and night out basis. But for whatever reason, he doesn't want to do it. So hopefully we get it next game again, but I'm not so hopeful personally.
Preach.
Man, man, I get it, but it's all about having the guts, in my opinion. So I might have to oppose that. But let's see, George, you.
Yeah, I'm actually with Anthony on this one. I think that his lack of aggressiveness is his biggest downfall because on a good day 6'10", I know he's listed at 6'9", but he's actually 6'10", 6'11". He's the biggest guy on the floor at any one time. But it's so difficult for him to really muster up the courage and that aggressiveness that he needs when he's not the first option. When you look around the league, you look at players like Jokic, Embiid, Towns. These are all top centers. These are all first options on their team. So I feel like he feels because Jimmy's there, he can kind of take a day off every time. Like he doesn't have to. He can hang his hat on the defensive end, which is fantastic. And he's actually coming third in our team's plus minus category. So it shows that even when he's not producing on offense, his defense is elite at every single moment of time. But hopefully one day he'll see that these games that he's having, the 31-point game today, the game against the Nets last season, when he has to take over, he can. Hopefully he can implement that to the game he's playing alongside his teammates because it's such an amazing, amazing thing when you've got real, a big man who can do it night in, night out because it's scary. When we verse a team like Boston who have, two legitimate stars in Brown and Tatum, and you can even argue that Marcus Smart's up there as well. But then you've got Robert Williams coming in and doing exactly what Bam's doing on the defensive end, maybe at a lower level, but he's also contributing on offense as well. So it's really disheartening to see that this isn't something he can do 99 out. But look, it is what it is at the end of the day. The game he had last night really just shows that he can do it. The fact that he did it with Jimmy off the floor is the concerning part as well, because when Jimmy comes back next game, and let's be totally honest, unless that knee is completely, messed up and it's falling off his leg, then I don't see him missing a single game. But he needs to realize that he has to step up. He has to be the second option because Tyler right now is playing like garbage, complete garbage. So it's down to Bam to really pick up the slack and to take the pressure off players like Hero as well, because if they're having trouble guarding Bam, that's going to open up more looks for everyone else. So it's a real, he's the X factor for our team because he provides so much coverage for other teams that they have to guard him every single second if he's that aggressive every game. And it just needs to be that wake up call for him to say that he has to perform. He has to do it right now. And if he can perform at this top level, then we're the team to beat, in my opinion, because if we're going into, a final against Golden State and they're not going to be able to touch Bam. So he needs to realize he's going to pick it up now, and hopefully he can build on this momentum.
Right, because that's the thing with Bam, because this isn't just some average guy, when you look at his build and everything. Like, this is a guy that's a force of nature, honestly. If he sets his mind to it, he can be someone that a lot of these guys fear. And that's why it sucks when I feel like some of these teams, some of these players, they don't really give Bam the respect when it comes to fearing him when it's time to guard him in certain possessions. Like, I know, like, we all know what Bam is capable of doing. So to see him go out there and show, like, nah, I am someone that's going to do this and that. I am someone that you got to worry about. Like, I am someone that you're going to have to give all your effort to if you're going to want to guard me. Like, I just loved seeing it. And it was just such a great game, especially in a game as pivotal as game 3. Like, what else could you ask for? And, like you guys mentioned, I really do hope we could see it happen on a consistent basis. Will it, though? I honestly don't know. But I pray for it every day and night because, man, could you, like you guys said, like, how good would this Heat team be if Bam was indeed playing at like this on a consistent basis? Like, this team would be unstoppable. Exactly what you guys said. So I don't know. It's just something to pray about. And man, like, I just can't wait to see if we do continue to see that type of Bam, even if he ends up being that second option once Jimmy comes back. So overall, just a great game for him. And I'm just glad that we are finally able to do a pod where we could just specifically talk about him having one of these type of games. I always wondered if we would have a moment to do something like this, and I'm glad that moment finally came up. So Bam, if you're listening to this, shout outs to you, bro. Anyways, so we talked a lot about Bam, and now it's time for a recurring segment on the pod, better known as the Spotlight Heat Player of the Game. In this game, we saw a handful of Heat players step up, and it's probably a hard decision for some of you guys regarding who would you pick to be the Spotlight Heat Player of the Game, because, like I said, a lot of guys stepped up to the plate and were willing to do whatever it took to help this Heat team win. So, with all that being acknowledged and stuff, like, who's y'all's pick for Spotlight Heat Player of the Game? We'll start off with you, George.
My choice is going to be a pretty simple one. I'm going to say it's Bam because Bam, we said it before, we'll say it again. When Bam performs, and the team has such an easier time at performing. But I'm going to pick a secondary star to go along with him, and that's PJ Tucker, because PJ Tucker, without him, Bam's role gets 10 times harder. It really, really does. So when PJ plays the way he does, having 17-7, 3 steals, a block, and good efficiency, it's such an important factor for us when it comes down the stretch, and even during the start of game strong, when you've got Tucker playing unbelievable defense alongside Bam, and he's putting up points and staying out of foul trouble, and he's facilitating and he's rebounding. So those two together are the stars of the week, because PJ is he's the star that we didn't know that he's the player we didn't know we needed. He really wasn't, because we had Jay Crowder and that was fantastic, and he was playing really well for us, but he wasn't sound on defense the same way that PJ is. Then we had Mo Harkless, which was just a disaster, was the worst thing I've ever seen. Then we got Trevor Ariza, which was just as bad. And now we've got PJ. We can see what a real 4 next to Bam to complement him actually looks like. And when he signed that contract, when I saw PJ Tucker sign with the Heat for 2 years, $7 million a year, I was like, what in the world are we doing? We have got no money. Why are we doing this? But like I said, he's the player we didn't know we needed, and he's performing the big time when we need him to. And so, yeah, those are my 2 stars of the week.
I like that. And let's see, Anthony, you?
Well, one thing, George, there's no one in Heat history as bad as Mo Harkless. Okay, he's got to be, and I'm very strongly feel that he's the worst player in Heat history. What?
Silva.
No, baby UD.
No, don't you ever
we're not
disrespect
going to
UD like that ever again.
No, because Chris Silva, at least he wasn't as disrespectful as Mo Harkless.
For real.
Are you saying he's the worst in history?
Yes.
That is
blasphemous. And we don't care. Anyways, Anthony, say what you want to say.
All right. So you were right, Joel. It is kind of hard to pick a spotlight player of the game. So I narrowed it down to 3. I want to go with James Capers, James Williams, and Curtis Blair, the officiating crew last night, because Jaylen Brown said after the game, and I quote, they, meaning the referees, they let a lot of stuff go tonight. I felt like whenever I drive in there, they got 2 hands on me the whole time. I don't get those hand checking calls. And you know what? Jaylen Brown is 100% correct, because he only went to the free throw line 12 times. And Miami went to the line 7 times, not including, garbage time. But Jaylen Brown only went to the line 12 times. The Celtics only went to the line 30 times as a team. So I just really want to shout out that horrific, god-awful, abysmal abomination they called an officiating crew last night, because that really turned Miami all the way up to the top, put them, Miami had 19 steals. They should have had 25 steals if they didn't call that crap that they were doing on Miami. So I just want to shout them out, and I guess Victor Oladipo, because he stepped up for Jimmy, and that's not an easy thing to do. So shout out to him.
Right, and that's a good point you brought up, because you know what? I saw a great tweet from Chef Trilly, aka Austin. Shout outs to him. And it's funny because he brings up how every time it seems like Victor is about to get put out of the rotation, he just comes in and has a great game. We saw that, specifically in that game 4 against Atlanta. And we saw that last night with the steals he was getting, the clamps that he was putting on these Celtics players. Like, he keeps showing why he's so important to this team, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to, get the job done. He's not like these other guys where he needs to do this and that. Like, whatever it takes to help this team wins, he's gonna do it. And that's all you could ask for from the guys that you got on that roster. So, that's a great option from your end. And Orchard, you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Kyle Lowry. I really think it's Kyle Lowry. Obviously, in this game, he was really struggling in his shooting, only had 11 points, but his impact on this team is absolutely crazy, and it's not looked at enough. And most people aren't going to notice it because you look at the box score and you can make your assumptions there. But he's just so important to this team, and we 100% would not have won this game if he didn't play. I mean, he makes everyone's life easier. We get better shot look, better looks from throughout the floor. He spaces the floor better, and his late game execution was actually very important to our win, in my opinion. For one thing, he had that clutch steal on Smart, which basically led to Strus laying up the ball, and that was pretty much the dagger. And then his inbounding, I honestly, I don't know if you guys remember, but last year our inbounding was god awful in the final moments. And one example was the Lakers versus Heat, where we had to get an inbound out, and we tried to make a long inbound to Jimmy, and it was stolen. And we got lucky there because Caruso missed the shot that would have sent us to overtime. But overall, like last season, our inbounding was just god awful. And having Lowry on this team to inbound in late game situations has been extremely helpful in letting us get the ball. And so we can have our guy go to the line and not turn the ball over. And so overall, I just think he's my spotlight player of the week, or the game, sorry. And it's not even just on the floor. It's also on the sidelines. You can see him telling players what to do. You see him talking to Coach Spo on the sidelines, and it just shows you that he doesn't need to be on the floor to help impact on this team.
Right. And it's the fact that you bring up Kyle, because I was actually gonna pick him, but luckily I got another choice in mind. But before I come out with that specific selection, I just gotta say I was very happy to see the way how Kyle played, because heading into the game, I was kind of worried about Kyle. When they announced that Kyle was questionable, I was excited, but I was low-key kind of worried at the same time, because I didn't know if we were going to get the healthy Kyle that we've seen throughout the season, the guy that's helped the Heat be successful, or the injured Kyle that we saw in those two games against Philly. And, that concerned me, because I didn't want him to rush back from injury, obviously. And if he was to, not only is he causing problems for himself, but it causes problems for the team as well. So the fact that he was able to come in and have such an impact on the Heat, and it honestly looks like he's starting to be that Kyle that we once saw, before that hamstring injury took place. And that's all you could ask for. So I'm very happy that he's starting to get back into shape. And that's honestly, I really wish you didn't say Kyle Lowry, Orchard, because I really wanted to pick him. But luckily, I did have my backup option in mind. So for my spotlight Heat player of the week, I'm going to go with Max Strus, because the dude was making all types of clutch threes, especially in that fourth quarter. As you brought up earlier, Orchard, the Celtics cut the lead to 1, but Max Strus, he wanted to let his former team know, like, y'all went and cut me, right? So let me show y'all what you missed out on. And he hit that clutch 3 to extend the lead for the Heat. And I freaking love it, because you know what? To those and we're not even going to talk about what Marcus Smart did to him in game 2. If you saw it, you saw it. I'm not going to go into detail about it. But Max Strus came in with a vengeance, and to see him play the way how he did, get those clutch triples and, play a great game, you just love to see it. So I'm just so glad that he was able to show out. And like I said, especially against his former team, it must have felt good for him. And hopefully this revenge tour continues for him. Hopefully with this series ending in Miami's favor, and hopefully with us going to the finals. And, obviously I don't want to go too ahead with it, but man, I just feel so good for Max Strus, though, seeing all that take place. Because if there's any team that you'd want to get revenge on for anything, I feel like it would be Boston. Because honestly, screw the Celtics. Y'all already know the drill about that. Anyways, we talked so much about this game 3. Before we close it out, I feel like it's only right that we talk about game 4 for Miami, as there's going to be so much to think about, because if the Heat do end up winning game 4, they're in a situation where they can take a commanding 3-1 lead. However, we all know that this isn't going to exactly be an easy thing, because the Celtics is a tough team, and they know that their season is probably going to be on the line if they lose game 4, because out of all the teams that could blow a 3-1 lead, I extremely doubt they expect Miami to be one of those teams, especially because we're coached by Eric Spoelstra and not Doc Rivers. Anyways, with that all being said, like, what do you guys expect to happen, and what should most likely be a very competitive game? Kick us off, Anthony.
Okay. So, like I've been saying, this series has been a roller coaster. It's what you expect with two good teams, right? So now this is kind of what I expect from game 4. I think it's going to be an absolutely legendary game. Now, it's possible that the Heat decide to rest Jimmy Butler. They're satisfied with their 1 win in Boston. So I think Boston will come back. They'll bounce back strong. They'll have a really strong punch early on, maybe be up around 18 at halftime. Jaylen Brown balling out again, 26 points at halftime. Tatum with a strong 19, Pritchard chipping in with 10. And then after a rough first half, Tyler Hero finally picks it up, hits back-to-back threes to cut the lead all the way to 11. But then Jaylen Brown goes off, and the lead explodes all the way to 25. But then back in Boston, versing the team that cut him, Max Strus goes absolutely berserk, super sane, hits 9 straight threes. He's up to 54 points. The Heat lead by 1 with 10 seconds to go. Udoka calls timeout, gives the ball to Tatum. Tatum, isolation, top of the key, dribbling left and right. Victor Oladipo glued to him like a magnet. That makes no sense. You don't glue magnets. Anyways, Tatum dribbling 3, 2, 1. Puts the shot up for the win, and it's no good. He win, going 3-1 in Boston, and then yeah, man, it's all good. We up 3-1.
All right, aside from that story, I didn't know where this was going, because first the Celtics was up 25, and then the Heat was currently coming back by Tyler. I don't know. That was a whole roller coaster.
He win. That's all that matters, baby.
Yeah. So to take that 3-1 lead, I'm down with it. George, you?
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. I really don't. But I think I could have closed my eyes during that segment, and I could have been, put myself at the game. But if I'm going to take a more grounded approach to this game, we're going to figure out first and mostly what just happened at TD Garden. The Garden was just an infirmary because of the amount of injuries there were. So Tatum's going to get assessed. Smart's going to get assessed. Jimmy, everyone's just got to be. We're going to fix as much as we can, get as much rest into them as possible, and see who's actually going to be fit for that game. But this is the perfect game to win for us, because we took the 2-1 lead, yes, but it was the first game of their home stretch, which is obviously the 2 games they played 3 and 4. Now, I'm so certain about this that Jimmy will play. Jimmy will absolutely play, and all of the pressure is on the Celtics. They've already dropped their home game, and the 3-1 lead is got an extremely high probability. If you take away the recency bias of what the Nuggets did last season, it's got such a high probability of leading a win for the team that was leading 3-1. So, the pressure's on the Celtics to really get that game back, and I think that what this game showed is that if we control the tempo the way that we did last game, we just have the best chance of winning it in any point in time. So I'm not saying we've completely figured them out, but we've definitely gotten a few more tips, and it should make our job just that much easier. But we're still gonna have to perform. Bam's gonna have to come out aggressive. Tyler, if this is any game for Tyler to go off, this is the freaking game for him to go off, because they're gonna expect it from Jimmy, Bam, Strus, Depot to play good defense. But if they see Tyler starting to hit shots left, right, and center, they're going to be in absolute peril. So it's time for us to turn up the heat and get that dub, because I just want to close this out as much as possible and see who we're versing in the finals.
Right. And it's a great thing you brought up Tyler, because one thing that's interesting to acknowledge is the fact that the last time the Heat and Celtics played in the game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Tyler Hero actually had 37 points, and he ended up cooking, the future defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart as well. So if there's any specific game where he could have a great night and stuff, it would be game 4, let's go on that throwback Thursday. Well, I don't even think it would be Thursday come game 4. It would be Monday, but still, give us that throwback and let's see, what we saw in that game in the against the Celtics in the bubble, and let's see Orchard, you.
I think the one big thing is to rebound better. Despite this win, we did actually get out rebounded 43-34, I believe. It might be a little off on those numbers, but I do know that I think it was around a 10-12 deficit. And typically we lose games that we don't, in which we don't out rebound the other team. So that's something we just gotta do better. I'm really surprised that we did end up winning. I think everyone was because of I think it just really came down to the last 2 minutes. But in general, just we got to rebound better and stay strong. I mean, Boston is obviously an amazing team. Don't get me wrong. I don't like them, but they're an amazing team. And especially when they're in a situation where their season could be on the line, they've shown that they can really step it up. For example, the Milwaukee series, they're down 2-3, and then they won the next 2 games. So they definitely have that mentality where they can, definitely win game 4. And I think it's fair to say that the Celtics have a higher probability of winning game 4 than Miami does. And so it's just going to have to be us staying strong and continue to be aggressive. And if Robert Williams is not playing, we just have to continue attacking the paint. Even if, obviously we want to stay aggressive in the paint no matter what, but obviously Robert Williams being out is a huge advantage for us. And hopefully Jimmy comes back because we're definitely going to need him. And I definitely agree with what George was saying about Hero. They're going to try to plan their defense to guard the players who've been playing well. And so to have a guy like Tyler who's been struggling in the series to suddenly come out and play really well, it's going to confuse their defense and hopefully have us play a lot better on offense. And the last thing is our holding leads. I honestly, I'm not going to blame Miami for blowing their 26-point lead in game 3 because the free throws, man. I really like game 1. I will say I think that was a problem for Miami where they didn't end up blowing the lead, but it was getting close. So that's something we have to work on. And game 3, it's frustrating, man. If it's like 27-5 free throws, it's got to be frustrating. And I understand that in those circumstances, it's going to be hard to hold on to the lead. And they ended up not making sure Boston didn't take the lead, but just in general, if we do end up taking a lead in the first half, second half, whatever, we just got to do a better job holding on to it. And before I finish my part, I just want to say prayers to Tatum, Smart, Butler, and Robert Williams. I hope they're all come back healthy because none of us want to see injured players on either side.
Right. So overall, it's going to be a competitive game. Like I said earlier, hopefully the Heat can get it done because I like to stick it to those who had the Celtics in 6, Celtics to 7, because we know damn well they did not have the Heat going up 3-1 in this series if that's the case. But we'll see what happens. I got the guts. I see the Heat winning this game if everything goes their way. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, we talked so much on today's episode that before we close it out, make sure to check out our Twitter and Instagram page at HVTW Podcast while checking out our website at hvtwpodcast.wordpress.com. That way you still have access to 24/7 Miami Heat content, even when we're not recording a new episode. Also, we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode because we'll be recording a new pod after every playoff win for the Heat, meaning that if God is willing, we'll have at least 6 more episodes to record before we officially end season 2 of Heat vs. the World. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast, and we'll see you guys soon with another episode. Hit my music because we out.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast.